Hello, my name's Greg Weston. I'm here to talk about my accident and recovery. On June the 25th, 2011, I went on a lad's golfing trip down to Bournemouth, where I went out on the evening, fell over, hit my head on a curb, and ended up in a coma, which I will talk about in a minute. I just want to paint the picture of what I was like before my accident. So I went to a good school, a good private school in Solihull. I had a very good education, went to university in Leeds, moved down to London where I worked for very successful banks in the banking industry. I had a great life. I was very, very sporty. When I was at school, I was in the school cricket team, played for the county at badminton and school and ball at squash. I was a very, very sporty and active person. And I guess I was like, I suppose all of us do, I was taking my life for granted really and failing to appreciate it. So for like I ran the London Marathon, for instance, and the Great North Run up in Newcastle as well. So as I say, I was taking things for granted really at that stage. So I went out on the evening of playing golf with my friends down in Bournemouth, and I fell over. I fell over and hit my head on the curb, which is a relatively small thing considering the catastrophic effect it had on me and everyone else. What's really strange is I actually am told that I walked onto the ambulance, having hit my head on a curb. I was taken to the local hospital, which was the Poole Hospital down there, and they checked me over and stuff. And then actually when I was in Poole Hospital, I actually slipped into a coma, and they had to take me to Southampton Hospital. Southampton Hospital is fortunately for me is a leading brain injury hospital that specialises in brain traumas. And there I was on a life support machine for 3 weeks, and the outcome was looking so bleak that the medics called my dad into a room and said, "Look, Mr. Weston, it's really not looking good. Greg has not shown any sign of recovery whatsoever in the 3 weeks he's been on the life support machine, and it literally is just the life support machine that's keeping him alive." And they said to my dad, "Look, if he does wake up, which in our professional opinion he won't, then he's just going to be completely brain dead. He's going to have use of none of his limbs. He's just going to be just a vegetable basically. Would Greg want to live like that?" And my dad said no, he wouldn't. So as a father, he had to make a very, very difficult decision and say, "I give you the permission to turn off the machine." And this is just, it's a miracle. But as they literally went to turn off the machine, I opened my eyes, and so I think it was someone, whether it was God or a power above, was saying it's not his time yet. And from that point on, my family knew that it was going to be a very, very long road to recovery. I got transferred from Southampton Hospital up to Warwick Hospital, where I was in the intensive care unit there. I have no memories at all of being in Warwick Hospital. I then got taken to the Lemington Rehabilitation Hospital, where I spent a year there. I was in bed in the intensive care unit, and I was being hoisted in and out of bed. Having I couldn't go to the toilet, couldn't get washed or dressed or anything like that. When it was eventually well enough to get out of bed, I was actually paralysed from the waist down. It's my accident. I've got a when I was in a coma, I had to have part of my skull removed up here, and they had to put in a titanium plate. And I think medically, what it is when you get hit on the left-hand side, it's meant to affect your right-hand side. However, for me, it's got hit on the left-hand side, and it's affected my left-hand side. So I wear a splint on my left leg, and I have struggled. I haven't got proper function in my left arm either. But when well enough to get out of bed. I couldn't walk, and I was in a wheelchair, which was a really, really, I found it a dreadful time. Like, I felt really struggled mentally with being, having been so active before my accident, to then be confined to a wheelchair was incredibly upsetting. And the medics have a duty of care to basically say to patients that if they're not able to walk again, they have to tell them. If they have that information available to them, they have to tell them straight away. And I'll never forget the day where the medics came to me and said, "Look, Greg, you've not had any sign of movement in your leg in the past sort of 6 months or 8 months or however long it was. We have to give you the news that you're never going to walk again." And it was like someone had literally stuck a dagger through my heart. A father to it, a young son who's just wants to play football with his dad and all that kind of stuff. It was just, it was literally a heartbreaking. So I spent, probably about another 6 months in a wheelchair, confined to a wheelchair. And then this is again, it's I think it's just unbelievable, really. But I have a good family friend. One of my best friend's father came to visit me, and he sat at the end of the bed, and he touched my foot and he said, "Greg, your foot is really, really cold." And well, obviously I couldn't feel it at the time, so he said, "I want to give it a massage." So he rubbed it with his warm hands, and as he did, I kicked my left leg. He was like, "Greg, do you know what you just did there?" And I was like, I might have moved my leg, and he did it again. I kicked it again. He called the nurses in straight away, and who called the physiotherapist in, and they said, "Greg, I think this means you could start to walk again," which was like literally just the most magical words ever. But again, it was a slow process. So I began having to walk using it's called like a tripod stick. So it's a walking stick with 3 large sort of legs on the bottom, give you the ultimate kind of support. And I used to have to wear like a sort of like a weight training belt sort of thing with handles on it around my back, so the healthcare assistants would have to hold on to the handles on the back of this belt, and then I would walk with the pod stick. And then so I had to go from that to then I was able to walk, so I was only able to walk supervised while the physios were training me to walk again. And then I had to go from that to being able to walk with unsupervised. And when I was at that stage, you then have to learn how to walk on different surfaces, how to walk on stepping up a curb, walking on grass, walking on gravel, whatever it may be, all the different surfaces, walking indoors. The brain injury is catastrophic in so many different ways, not just physically, mentally, but again, I'll come on to that in a minute. So then, I'll talk about that now, because, as I say, it's not just the physical effects of a brain injury, it's the mental effects. Like, I have a terrible disorder called Obsessive-Compulsive Disorder, which basically you just feel like you're going crazy, and it drives other people crazy. I know, particularly like my son and people around me. Like, it's almost like your mind doesn't believe what you're seeing. I mean, it's just, my son said, it's weird. It is very, very abnormal. Things like light switches, like when a light switch is on, push it down, and you can see the light switch like this. But for some reason, in my mind, when I turn it off, so the top bit is flat against the wall and the bottom bit is sticking out, my mind just seems to think, oh, I need to double, triple, quadruple check that. So I like run my fingers under it and stuff like that, and it is incredibly strange. I don't know how to describe it really. It's basically like your brain doesn't trust your eyes. So with light switch, whether it be locking my car, it can get even worse than that. It can get things like putting things in the middle of like a table or something like that. I mean, it's actually made it quite rude. I was actually on the phone to my dad once, I remember, and I've got like an ornamental fruit bowl in the middle of my table, and it wasn't in the middle. Someone had moved it over to the left-hand side, and even wait until the end of the conversation with my dad. So I put the phone down on the table, got up and moved the fruit bowl in the middle of the table. Of course, when I got back to my phone, my dad had hung up because, you wouldn't you? It's just, it is ridiculous, and it does drive people crazy, people close to me, like my cleaners and stuff like that, found it incredibly annoying sort of thing. But I've also suffered from depression. I'm on medication for depression, as you'd expect from something like this. I've had problems with my bladder. It's just, so the one thing I try and explain about a brain injury is not just a physical thing. It's not just physical, it's mental as well. Going forward though, I'm very, very positive about my life. One thing that that has helped me greatly in my recovery is volunteering. I volunteer for the hospital I was actually a patient in at the Lemington Rehabilitation Hospital. Very proud to say I've got an award, a Special Achievement Award, from the Mayor of Warwick to recognise my services there. And what I find about that again is it's brilliant that I can, as I keep saying, I can use my experience to help other people. So there'll be patients in there, they've all had brain injuries, so there'll be patients that can't use their left arm, so I'll give them exercises like this to do bicep curls and to do exercises. We also do a bit of meditation, we play ball games to help improve hand-eye coordination. That's fantastic. It's wonderful, as I say, that I can help other people from having had my accident. I always say that I think I had my accident for a reason, so that I can help other people. Again, I set myself some physical challenges. There was a girl who was poorly with a brain tumour, and so I walked at Mount Snowdon, which was quite an accolade for someone that was told they'd never walk again. It actually took me 7.5 hours. I remember doing it with two very good friends from school who were just amazing, really, because they were both very fit. They'd actually done the Snowdon Marathon like a couple of months before, and they said it was easier to do the Snowdon Marathon than it was to walk up with me because it was so cold. Wind was coming down sideways, it was raining, sleeting, it was just horrific conditions. We got to the halfway point because it was like this, the halfway point was just a steep path, and when I remember getting to the halfway point thinking, I feel quite optimistic about that. We did that in 2 hours, and I thought, oh God, that's brilliant. If we could do it in 4 hours, that would be wonderful. However, the second half goes from like a steep path to rocks, to actual sort of rocks. The rocks were about a foot high, and my friends John and Paddy had to literally lift up my left leg because my left leg's so weak. I can't do this with my left leg. They had to literally physically lift up my left leg over the rocks, and it was such an ordeal. It was just unbelievable. My walking aid, my crutch, was got stuck in between two rocks at one point. James's shoe came off, and the heel of his actual boots completely came off, so he had to walk up part of it with no heel on his shoe. My shoe came off, it got stuck between a rock, and that came off, and they were having to help me put it back on. It was the biggest challenge I've ever done, but it was really rewarding, obviously, to get to the top, and we managed to raise nearly £3,000 for a girl with brain tumour. And then the following year, I did the Stratford 10k, again to raise money for a poor girl again, and I mean, it's official to say I came last. It took me about 2.5 hours, but it was really tough because half of it was on the road, some of which were really, really steep, and it was actually harder going down the ones that were going downwards. But also there was the other half was through a park with like really difficult, like uneven ground and stuff like that. I got a standing ovation at the end. I'm not sure whether that was because they were pleased that they could all go home now, but that was finally coming at the end or not. But it was yeah, it was very rewarding. I was able to give the little girl a raise money for the medal that I was awarded, so that was great. So all in all, just to sort of summarise now, I would just like to give hope to anyone that has had a serious brain injury or has been through a traumatic event. as I say, I was never told to walk again. I walked up Mount Snowdon. Mentally, I'm in such a better place now. I don't irritate people as much as I did do before my accident. I don't fall out with people as much. I've come a long, long way, and I would just like to give everyone hope and use my favourite quote from Audrey Hepburn, that nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible. It can be done, positive mindset, and you can overcome things. I'll probably wrap it up there now, but it's been lovely to share my experience with you. I hope this helps anyone. If anyone would like to look at it, I have my own Facebook page called Gregory's Journey Towards Independence, which I use to post things like walking at Mount Snowdon and just other positive things that maybe have helped people. So at that point, I will say goodbye to you all and good luck. Thank you.